Hi everyone, I'm Krika and this is Art Rendezvous. This is a show where we introduce you to two new artists in every episode. So if you're an art lover, please like and subscribe our channel. Our first guest tonight is Rita Marie Raz. Rita is a master sculptor who weaves her inspirations into beautiful masterpieces. So let's invite her on the show. Hi Rita.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Welcome to Art Rendezvous.
Oh, it's fun to be here.
You have been a metal sculptor for a while. How long it has been, and what was your journey to become a professional sculptor?
See, I've been probably seriously pursuing sculpture since probably about, I don't know, late mid 80s. But I was doing jewelry before that in Northern Ohio, and a lot of my work comes from doing macrame as somebody in high school and jewelry for a long time. Um, I learned how to basket weave in Southern Ohio and then ended up moving out of Ohio to Austin and met more sculptors. And so it's been a long journey. I've been at it a long time.
What are the different metals that you work with?
I mostly consider myself a non-ferrous metal sculptor, which means that most of the metals I work with, like copper, brass, silver, bronze, there's no steel in it, so it's softer. And my work doesn't spark when you heat it up like you would be if you were a welder. Much easier. And I love copper because you can color the metals with greens and blues and very fun.
And do you not find it hard to bend the metal and work with it?
I work with the oxyacetylene torch. So when you're even like a lot of my woven work is recycled copper. So I'm getting it in really thick wound up cables. So I heat that up and when it's something called annealing in jewelry and sculpture. But basically it opens up the molecules and you can open it up and then reheat it as you're going along if it gets hard. Like when you're a kid, you're bending something that breaks. Well, that can happen with me too with my wires. So what I'm doing is I'm heating them up and making them softer if they're in a hard place. And it allows me to go crazy with making something very detailed or something large and detailed.
But I it, earlier you said that you used to weave the basket, and then from there you got the idea. But
Yes.
it looks really hard to like weave with metal. It's not that's not easy at all.
Well, it took me about 8 years to figure out how to translate the grapevines into using copper wire because I kept trying to do it like somebody that worked on a loom, like making, all the going in and out of everything. And I finally just had a breakthrough that I didn't have to do it quite like that. And basically, I'm making a metal cloth. So once that cloth is made, I go in and heat it up, and I don't know if you think about it like a pattern, like some of the hollow figurative forms. I just think of it as, oh, what would a pattern look like if you were doing a sleeve and you cut the metal like that? The trickiest part, and I think the breakthrough, was when I did that and then I took out all the overlap seams because if the piece behind me had a seam in it, you would see that. And so
Yeah.
that probably takes me longer than anything is to make it look like it's all from one piece of metal. Um, so it's not as hard as you might think. It's just time. Yeah.
And what is the biggest piece that you have made so far?
Well, I made a very large woman, a female figure, and I called her Soul Slate, and there she is on there. And there's actually more pieces on that. There were three more birds, and that was 12 feet tall. Um, but a lot of my serious pieces over time, I might morph them because they're not saying what I want to, or my skill levels gone up. And that is one thing that's lovely about the copper and metal is that you can take away and add on. And there's a beauty to it. So yeah, that was 12 feet. And then I realized that I've also made a 12-foot cross that was a commission that's here in town. And that was my biggest piece at that time. It's very tall, and it's up. So
Um, in one of the pieces that I've seen that I find really mesmerizing, you call it the return. It's a different. It's like a cocoon. Would you talk a little bit about that one?
yeah, that was kind of a breakthrough piece. I'm trying to convey a feeling and not so it was pretty abstract or about feeling. They're not about anything representative like that you understand. So the return was about me exploring the thought about getting out of my studio. And so that was me opening up and like, I need to get out of my studio and be with people and return to society. But I had to laugh because the first person that saw that was a friend of mine, another artist down from me. And when he saw it, I was like, so what do you think about this, Al? And he's looking at it and all of a sudden he goes, oh, I know what it is. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what is he thinking? He's like, the drop of water returning to the ocean. And I thought that was so interesting because for me at the time, I needed to get out to return. And for him, the return was in. And then later on, I just sort of ask people because it is a curious piece. A lot of people and everybody sees it differently, but a lot of men saw the drop of water going in, and I just thought that was interesting. But I like it either way, because sometimes going in is a return to yourself, and other times getting out is. So that's the beauty of an abstract piece. And
Yeah.
most of my pieces that are abstract or even some that aren't, I like to write something so people have a point of reference to start looking at it. Now what they see may not be the same thing as me, but that's that's art.
Is there a piece that is your favorite that you like most?
Well, probably my most intense piece is one behind me. It's called The Offering, and that was my response to Hurricane Katrina. So I was kind of exploring the sacredness of death, no matter how you go. And the chalice is the offering of the hands, like, the chalice. And so the hands, they were real creepy, and I had to grind them down because, I mean, this piece I literally worked on for about 8 years on and off, trying to make it right. And it was about the souls. I kept thinking that during Katrina, because I knew people there, I had this flash of people like ascending and they weren't scared. They were holding each other's hands. Um, and I somehow I just had to make that, get it out of my system because I was very upset about it. But it took me a long time, and some pieces I go back to until they feel complete. And this was one of them. And a lot of people have seen it in different stages, but it's done now.
It is beautiful piece, and I see it has a small ring on the hand also. What is the purpose of the ring?
Well, when I was going through, I thought seemed like people felt were creeped out by the arms and the hands because they were a little more gnarly. And so I ground them down, but I thought if I put a ring on it, I just felt like the hands needed to be more important. And there's an opal on there. And of course, people want to buy the ring. And it's like, no, no, no. The opal thing is a symbol of water. And I had a friend that her husband had passed and had made the opal. He had cut the opal kind of perfect for the piece. I don't know, it seemed to bring it together. And then the
Mhm.
last piece, on the bottom, I felt like it needed to be grounded, and so I kind of my signature lately has been the vines and the leaves. So that really helped. I don't know, soften it somehow so it didn't look like a snake.
Yeah.
Just yeah, everybody has. Yeah, I was just watching how people were responding. I went, well, okay, and that seemed to work too.
I'm just curious why you were so influenced by that tragedy. It was a big tragedy, but why you were so influenced by it to that inspired you to create that piece?
Well, I think a lot of my pieces are about, I don't know, showing what I feel inside without talking about it. I just remember sitting at the computer, and I had friends in New Orleans, and I don't know, my heart just went out to everybody, and felt like it was lingering in there, and I felt like I needed to express it. It took me a while to even start it, but it kept was in the back of my mind. And I went, just need to get this out of me somehow, and it's been really pretty lovely to watch people respond to it, and when they know about it, it opens up a whole nother conversation. Um, I don't know. My heart hurt, and so I think that helped it.
Um, do you teach making jewelry and metal sculpting?
Yes, I got into the sculpture because I was making jewelry that was figurative work, and at one point it was like these little tiny pieces want to be big pieces, and so that kind of got me thinking about doing sculpture. And I I've been teaching jewelry and making jewelry for a long time. Actually, in the mid '90s, I had a gallery called Laughing at the Sun, and we had studios behind that. And my mentor at the time, with the sculptor Daryl Colburn, he said, "Why don't you teach?" And I went, "I don't know, I can't teach." And then he's like, "You know more than they do," and I'm like, "Okay, you're right, I do." And I love it. I love teaching. So I teach at the Creative Side Jewelry School here in Austin, and then last couple, I used to teach basket weaving actually at Laughing at the Sun. And then once I started doing the weaving with the metal itself, I thought I should teach this. And it took me a while to do that. So now I teach maybe once or twice a year out in Wimberley at Flight Acres Ranch. And Wendy out there has a big studio outside with big doors, and you feel like you're in the middle of her grapevines and stuff, and then she has horses there. And it's kind of perfect. Everybody has their own bench, so you can work outside in nature. So that's been pretty fun. I'm still kind of developing that, but it's fun.
Um, I just wanted to point out the another piece that you have in the back, the spear.
Uh-huh.
Would you talk a little bit about that one as well?
So this is called the sphere of attraction. Uh, um, it's definitely a basket weaving technique. Uh, and it's another one of those ones. It's like I wanted to show somehow how how you're attracted to people, and like you don't even know why, but you just kind of go towards them. And so this was a piece, and when I have it spinning, it actually plugs in. People are mesmerized, and I have been in the middle of a crazy shows and had that spinning, and you all of a sudden you have one person just very quietly standing in the middle of all this chaos, and they're transformed somewhere.
Yeah,
So that's it's a fun piece. Yeah, I
it
like
is.
that make slow you down a little bit.
It is. It is beautiful. Rita, thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for being on the show.
Well, thanks for making this happen. Appreciate it. It's fun to meet people too.
You're welcome. Our second guest tonight is Kevin Middleton, who is a caricature artist and makes fun art. So let's invite him on the show. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, thank you.
Welcome to Art Rendezvous.
Yes, pleased to be here.
So, what was your journey to become a full-time caricature artist?
Oh, I was always into art. I mean, there's a story that I keep hearing about when I was 3, and they gave me a wall because I should, have explore my creativity. So I got a whole wall in the backyard.
Mm-hmm.
But I was always drawing. Went to art school, focused on illustration, and went to Southwestern in Georgetown with a focus on, graphic illustration, and then went into graphic uh, design. Did some work for a few design firms, and then about 7 years out of school, I came across doing caricatures at events. I thought, wow, that's a great way to party and get paid.
So, I'm guessing the most of the people that you make caricature of, you're meeting them first time. And so, how do you bring out the fun side of their personality? Just, you've just met them.
Well, I'd like to say it was just all in the face. It's caricature is a matter of exaggeration. So you can exaggerate, what makes them whatever, but I exaggerate what makes them look good. They always come out looking, fantastic. They look marvelous. I make them all look like celebrities and superheroes. That's the secret to my success.
So sometimes do they get, conscious about what you're making, or, do they ask you for specific things in caricature?
Yeah, especially the beautiful people. They say, "Oh, don't draw this. Don't." I know before I get started what I need to draw, and what not to exaggerate. What they are afraid their features, and usually it's features that I can't tell. I mean, it's the ones that have the biggest egos that are afraid of the littlest things.
Yeah. So how long it takes you to make a face usually?
Well, I've gotten faster over the years, but now I can do a black and white in 3 minutes, which is very fast. That's about 20 faces in an hour. Colors I'm a little slower, but there's a lot more detail and a lot more things I can add when I'm adding color. But I can do a black and white face in 3 minutes.
Wow, that is super fast. And now we have one of your video that we would like to play it, of you making the caricature.
Yeah, that's close to full speed. I mean, it's a little faster than I actually draw it, but
Yeah,
it's close.
that is incredible. And it's two people, so probably um, it's probably 6 minutes for
Yeah,
this.
closer. I mean, it's when it's in black and white, it's almost like 5 minutes for two people because though it's harder to do groups, big groups, if you put a whole bunch of people on the page. But yeah, I'm used to doing two. It seems like everybody wants to sit down in pairs, whether they know each other or not.
So have you drawn the whole group sitting together in one space?
Not well. I do big group images, but I draw them individually at the event and then scan them in and present them the party host the full size group image after the fact. It's an additional charge, but it's something very popular nowadays that they want the big image, but they want everybody drawn, and that way everybody gets to have a piece of art hold in their hand. But then there's the group image that's digital, and they can put it on postcards or greeting cards or online.
The image that we had on the screen, do you remember what event it was?
It's probably a wedding. I do so many weddings. I feel like I do a wedding every weekend.
Is there an event you remember having most fun at?
I try to have fun at all of them, but when I think of it, the Texas Sand and Gravel Truckers Association, just a bunch of old, weather-beaten, gnarly guys that had no problem with the way they looked. They were comfortable in their skin, didn't mind being, they were well liquored up and was having some fun. So that's probably, if I have to narrow it down, they loved it.
So you do more than caricature. You do a lot of other art, other fun art too. And one of your most common one that I've seen is the series on the maps. How did you get into making the fun maps?
Right out of school, I got a job doing specialty advertising, and maps was coming up, and then I was doing just maps for a company. Started out doing maps in Texas, and then uh, doing a whole bunch of maps for Florida, about 15 or so cities, counties in Florida. So a lot of people haven't seen these because they're all off in Florida, but I've done a whole bunch in Texas, the Hill Country, and I've done one that's all trying to get all of Texas in one image. Then I did one of the whole United States, cram packed full of stuff, fun stuff, because you leave out the boring stuff and just put in the good stuff.
Yeah, it must be hard to pick the landmarks, which one you want to show in
It's,
this.
yeah, I try to make just the fun elements, but if it's for a business, they want their tire company on there, and you got to do it. But when it's more of a tourist map, like that one USA map, it's just the fun elements that are most attractive touristy spots. Those are fun.
Is there a art piece that you find most fascinating that you have made and it's more fascinating to you?
Well, I'd probably have to say it's the one that I've titled "We're All in This Together." It pretty much sums up in this current pandemic. Skin color, culture, borders of nationality, religious beliefs, status, age, gender, sexual orientation should not divide us. This artwork was completed just before Earth Day, so it has, I hope, a double meaning. We're all in this together, not just with our human neighbors, but we share this planet with the animals, creatures, beasts, trees, plants, and ocean. To go on, it's to quote Mr. Rogers, when I was a boy, I would see scary things in the news. My mother would say, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. To this day, especially at times of disaster, I remember my mother's words. And I'm always comforted by realizing there are still so many helpers, so many caring people in the world. In this current pandemic, this is especially true, and I much prefer media stories of true heroes. Working from home has its advantages, and I greatly appreciate the opportunity to spend time with family and remotely with friends and community rather than commuting, while knowing I am doing my part for the greater good. I also much prefer optimistic coverage about how the planet is recovering due to humans globally practicing social distancing and staying home, and pray we have learned some lessons from this current situation and make some lasting changes for the better. What is more beautiful than smiles, and genuine smiles are not limited to skin color, culture, age, gender, or any other previously mentioned factor. A quote from Demi Lovato: "Nothing is more beautiful than smile, and has a smile that has struggled through tears."
Well, that was excellent. You are an excellent writer also.
Oh, thanks.
That really sums up everything you had in that picture, and it's totally apt for what we are going through today. Yes.
Yes, I think so. I think so.
And so you have a lot more other work that you do for the fun art, and your how's your art accessible besides the prints?
Everything's online. I mean, online sales these days. About 10 years ago, I started doing print on demand. There's a lot of websites, and they're accessible through my site. You'll see the others, and you just Google them. But you can buy them on my print on a greeting card, T-shirts, all the way up to giant wall-size decals that you just stick to your wall. It makes it easier to do murals that way. But yeah, that's what I'm doing now, is print on demand artwork that just sells that way. No inventory to deal with, just draw, print.
So you take uh, commission work also. Any kind of commissions do you do,
Oh,
or
sure. I do some commissions. A lot of times these days, they'll see something that I do that's on one of the print on demand sites and say, "Can you make this small change?" I love that compared to, I have this idea, and after about 27,000 changes, I may decide not to print it and, don't get paid at all. So I love just making a tiny change to something I've already done. And a lot of my stuff is digital download now.
where? How is that? How does that work?
Well, one of the sites, pixels.com, you can buy it like one of my big maps as a digital download, and that way they can customize it and use it for their business and whatnot. Or there's also this new digital picture frames.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever seen one of these, but we used, back a couple of years ago, they were selling tiny ones, little 5x7s. Now they've got giant 18 by 30 inch wall size digital picture frames that you can have your art on it. And it's like a subscription, like, music is switching to subscription, and books are now, ebooks. Art is the same way. It's a subscription, and you just buy a piece that's on your digital frame for a month or whatever, depending on how you buy it. It's another way of doing prints, I guess.
That is a neat idea, because you can have one picture frame, but you can keep changing and set an art on it, whichever fits in the mood of this occasion that you have at home. So that is a real neat idea. And would you repeat the name of the digital frame that you were talking about?
Nimbus, like the cloud, Nimbus art frame, nimbusframe.com, I believe it is, but you can look that up. It's we had one at our last library exhibit, and it rotated a new image every 10 minutes. So it gave us the chance to really extend how many pieces we can put on a wall, because every 10 minutes, a new piece of art.
Um, And before we go, would you just tell us where do you exhibit your work mostly? Are there specific events that you have on regular basis?
Well, the online's always. You can always find my stuff online. And I've done about 10 libraries in the past couple of years, and I've got another one, but it's not until um, 2022 because of the pandemic. Everything's gotten moved off. But I like to do libraries because, well, galleries take 50% or some. They're costly,
Yeah.
and they take commission. But libraries are fun, and a lot of people go through a library. So many people see it that way. So if not libraries, it's all online.
So, well, thank you, Kevin. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
being here. So that was our show for tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe our channel. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a Halloween special episode. Until then, stay safe. Bye.